Hello and welcome to our latest Seed to Sweater video. Today we're going to be thinking all about repotting our seedlings. Here you can see our Cosmos seedling that we planted in one of the soil blocks. Now this one has definitely run out of space in its soil block. Its roots are bound quite tightly in there. When you're thinking about repotting your seedlings, you want to make sure you've got lots of true leaves. So these are the interesting shaped ones. They're not the little seed leaves, which are the first ones that pop out. In order to repot anything that you've sown in a soil block, you simply need to actually place the whole block into your new pot and then fill it up with compost. The reason that you can just put the whole thing straight in there is that actually the little bit outside is biodegradable, so that'll just disappear into the compost and it'll allow all the roots to grow nicely. So it saves you the faff of having to take it out of there or break it apart, which is great. Once you've filled that up with compost nice and carefully, making sure that your plant is nice and straight and in the middle, you can just water that down afterwards to make sure everything's in place and everything is nice and happy. Once you've watered that down nicely, you just need to put that back in a nice sunny spot. We keep ours in the greenhouse, but this can stay on a windowsill for a while. That's not a problem. I wouldn't recommend planting these out just yet. We have had a little bit of frost, so I think definitely exercise a bit of caution. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at repotting some seedlings where you've actually got more than one in each pod. Now we don't have any of these in the soil blocks to show you, but the principle is basically the same. Once you can see that you've got true leaves, then you know that you can repot. As you can see with these ones, the roots and the stems are going to be pretty close together, so they definitely need to come out so that both of the plants have lots of space to grow. If you are growing your seedlings in one of these trays, it can be a little bit tricky to sometimes get them out. You need to be really, really careful to make sure that you're not ripping any of the roots. It's actually easier if it's quite dry to separate the roots apart. When it's wet, the roots tend to get quite stuck, so definitely don't do this when your soil is really wet. Once you've removed your plants from their little pod, at that point, you can begin with your repotting. If you're doing this with one of the soil blocks, you just need to tear that outside sort of papery material so that you can access the compost in the middle, so that you can tease apart the two plants quite easily. So we've got here two relatively small pots, and I'm just going to fill those with a tiny bit of compost in the base. Now we didn't do this for the ones with the soil block because they've already got that compost around them, and we wanted to plant them quite deeply. These ones we want to plant quite deep as well, but they do need a little bit underneath because they won't have as much soil around them already. So once you've done that, we now need to think about separating these two plants. Now you need to be very delicate with these. Don't try and rush or force them apart because you'll end up ripping lots of the roots and that might impact the growth. So I always do this over the compost because it can get a bit messy. And you're literally just rubbing and sort of pinching and gently brushing off as much of that excess soil as you can to start off with. Once you've done that, if you hold one plant in each hand very carefully and sort of wiggle them around, you might need to hit them on your hand a little bit as well until you can comfortably pull them apart, just teasing those roots away from one another. If you feel a lot of resistance, give them a bit more of a shake and eventually it'll come loose. Once you've done that, the repotting is relatively similar. These are a bit trickier because obviously they'll fall because they don't have that strength and sort of integrity as the ones in the soil block to stand up. Just gently move the plant to the side so that you can get the compost in, making sure that you don't snap the stem because that would be a bit of a disaster. So really carefully fill that up, and then as before, what you're going to do is you're going to press it down nice and firmly just so that everything is really in there, taking care not to disrupt the plant or the stalk too much. And we've just sped this next one up for you so you can see what we're doing. If you are having trouble finding compost, we certainly had quite a lot of problems finding any. What you can do is you can actually just mix half and half, or even sort of 2/3 to 1/3 of outside soil from the ground and compost, so that you can sort of lengthen your compost, which allows you to plant out more. This is something we've had to do, but it's been all right, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Then water those down nicely, and just like before, we want to pop those in a nice sunny spot, ready to grow a little further so that we can plant them out in the coming weeks. Again, it might be tempting to plant them out already, but we have learnt the hard way that it is probably a little too soon. Thank you for watching our Seed to Sweater video. We can't wait to see your progress and how your seedlings are getting on. Let us know using the hashtag Seed to Sweater, and make sure to tag us as well.